Welcome to High Heel Talk, unfiltered, unscripted, sometimes unpredictable, and delivered in a very authentic and friendly manner. This program is proudly brought to you by MCG Flooring.
Elevating homes one floor at a time. MCG Flooring, where family and quality meet.
And welcome, Karen Weaver. Darling, you are, of course, a publisher, Stevie Award winner, 3-time TED speaker, and, by the way, mother of 6. Welcome.
Thank you, Barbara.
Amazing Vanessa Verschow. Vanessa, high performance coaching, psychologist, and transformation expert. You are also author, keynote speaker, and award-winning facilitator.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
And you are mother of 2.
I am. Thank you. Proudest one.
And our beautiful new guest, Tracy Fryer, host of the Real Biz Life Chronicles that I was fortunate to be already in podcast. Renowned for your trading and design expertise within a company called Design Studio. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And welcome back, our beautiful Donna Stanbulish, who is director of the North Perth Psychology Center, in Perth, of course, clinical psychologist, founder of Recode Me recovery programs, media commentator, and mother of 2.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darlings. Welcome, and let's get rolling. My first topic of today. What do you think about power of story? 2. Connect, heal, and awaken something within others. And I think it's just fair. In effect, where do we start? We start maybe with Karen.
Where did we hear this before? This is what I show up for every day, the power of story, to connect, heal, ignite, and awaken something within someone. Because whenever we share our stories, Barbara, we can, that's what stories make the world go round. So that's what we need in the world right now, because things are shifting, people are feeling unsteady. And whenever you share your stories, you can hold a guiding light, like a beacon, just for someone else to, and if it resonates for them, then, and they take action, they may find their way onto their right path.
Vanessa, your perception of power of story.
Oh, look, in organisational life and working in this space for so many years, the difference between a leader who is truly effective and one who isn't in this brave new world that we found ourselves in are the ones that can tell stories. And I don't mean tell stories in a manipulative way. I mean tell stories in a way that connects their workforces to their heart so that there's real engagement. You know, everybody's talking about purpose-led organisations. How do you create a purpose-led organisation? By telling the story of the North Star so people can engage at scale in a meaningful, heart-led manner to really create the kind of change that we need to see in this world. So it really does make a difference, and it separates effective from non-effective leaders. There's no question.
No question. Tracy?
I think the beauty of a story is that everyone can learn something from each other's stories. And even from a brand point of view, like we each have our own story. Our lives are all these intricate events that have led us up to this certain point. And whether it's your story or mine, like we can all take something from someone's story. So I think that's where the real beauty lies.
Beautiful. Donna?
Always telling stories. I think stories are probably one of the most important tools that we have to teach each other about each other, but also for ourselves as well. And the power of the story, because our head is so full of stories all of the time, things that we're telling ourselves, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It just seems to like, you know, if we can be vulnerable and share a story with another human being, it just reduces that noise in our own head, and it takes away some of those shame tapes that we have, and we've all got those shame tapes running. And back to your point, we don't feel so alone. Because often we feel like we're the only person in the world that this is happening to at any given point in time. And then as soon as we shine a light on that, it just breaks down like all, you know, it transcends so many barriers, stories.
And as long as your story or story you believe in, then it becomes authentic.
Yeah.
And when it's authentic, it will arrive with others. I mean, you as a publisher,
I live with stories every single day, and one of my own philosophies in life is we can choose a positive or a negative thought. You can't have both at the same time. So I choose positive every single day. So, and then I get to experience a more positive life. It doesn't mean that I don't have adversities. I have plenty.
yeah,
But it means that my energy goes towards positivity, towards positive actions, towards pouring into myself and to others, because, self-love is important. If we're not full cup, we can't pour into others. I'm talking from experience
yes.
because I hit rock bottom from having an empty cup. But and that's why I choose positive mental attitude every single day. So then I deal with the adversities when they come, but they don't get my energy.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful. Vanessa?
Yeah, look, I think these days there are a lot of stories, I think, and there's a problem in that because knowing how to decipher or navigate what's fake and what isn't is a really big problem, and it's creating a lot of mental health issues as well with these unrealistic standards or stories about the perfect life that's attainable. So in my world, where I go with my clients and when I'm coaching executives is, being real is rare. So keep it real. Particularly in Australia, where we've got very high BS meters, if you are pulling a line or saying something dishonest, people just know. They can smell it. So it's so important to be upfront about whatever the story is that you're telling for whatever reason, and just keep it real. That's my motto.
Keep it real.
Keep it real.
Don't become Instagram.
No, God no.
Tracy?
Look, I think social media serves a place in that all business owners, especially, or anyone, personal brand, business brand, you've got a platform where you can really share your authentic story. Where it gets misguided is when people manipulate that story and then people believe, so-and-so's got X sort of lifestyle, but back at the ranch, they're in severe debt, they're in a much worse place than what they should be. There's something from my own personal journey is that I've had to learn to question the stories I tell myself, because I used to tell myself, I'm not a runner, I don't do this, I don't do that. And one day I thought, well, screw that idea, I'm going to start running. So I started running to my post box, and I now run marathons. So I had to really question, challenge myself, like, Trace, is that story true? Or is it something you just tell yourself to be comfortable and,
You walk your talk.
settle for mediocrity? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Now, Donna.
I love that. It's the narrative.
Yeah.
It's the narrative, and like, what narrative, what story am I telling myself today? And I choose to almost every morning have that brass band playing, like just personal for Donna, like cheering me on, telling me that I'm good enough and that I got this, and rather than listening or comparing myself on social media or deciding not to be authentic or not to show off my true self. It comes back to that story, that we.
Donna, what I'm thinking, as a psychologist, when you get patients, they sometimes will tell you a real story, but they sometimes will tell you a story they created to believe.
Yes.
How quickly do you experience it, that the real story or the story they're telling themselves?
Well, I think there's a lot of safety for people, coming up with a certain narrative, or we're conditioned as children to, we're programmed, we're conditioned to have this story that I'm not a runner, or, I'm not good on media, I can't public speak, or I'm too anxious, whatever it is.
Yes.
And so it's about, you get to choose, every single one of us on this couch and all of the viewers at home, they get to choose what their story is going to be, and how can we change that story, and what's the ending going to be. So, and there's so much power in that, isn't there?
But I think you've got to work really hard at, and I love that, Donna, and is that duck of self-doubt, I call it. That little duck that's going quack, 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 quack on your shoulder, and you got to shut that duck up. You got to get rid of it. And I love that, but it is something that we've got to work at, right? We've got to work at, because it comes from all these records in our life that we play, and this conditioning and asking ourselves, is this really me, or is this something that I've constructed as part of an experience that I had, or a negative interaction where I'm still allowing it to affect the choices that I make? So I say, shut that duck up and throw it away.
Second topic that comes to my mind that I love to discuss with you, already touched on it recently, self-love. Okay. How important is self-love and self-acceptance in order to receive love to build successful relationship?
Wow, that's a big question, isn't it? Hit us with that first. Well, self-love, that's where everything, it's an inside job. I always say that so many people are reaching outwards for the answer in that, and the answers are within us all. So you lean inwards for the answers, outwards for the support to make things happen. So like whenever I serve myself first and take care of me, I'm the highest version of myself. And then I get to show up and I know that I'm being myself, being intentional, doing things from the right space within me. So I can always say, no, I know that I have taken that action because it's come from within me. And then I think people glow whenever, it's not arrogance, there's not anything like that. Just loving yourself is showing others. You show others then just by serving yourself first and giving them permission to do it for themselves and find the way.
It's like, I'm already having good day.
Yes.
How about you? Welcome to the party.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Vanessa, what's your self-love?
I would say I think that self-awareness is where it all ends and begins. And I think that it's very difficult to have successful relationships with others if you don't know who you are. And so in my work with my clients, that's the first place we start. Like, do you actually know who you are? And this may surprise the audience that even the most successful executives I've had the privilege to work with on paper cannot tell me who they are and what their gifts are. And if you don't know the answer to that question, how can you access them and how can you use them?
That's right.
So that's the first place we have to start and do the work. Do the work, because somewhere along the way, people are going to tell you who you should be. Society is going to try to mold you and shape you, and you've got to stay really strong. When you know who you are, that is your core. That's your internal power that drives everything in your life. So you've got to start there.
Tracy, I see you nodding, and so
Yeah,
yes.
I love that. It's your core. I think there's a misconception that, you know, going for a facial or having some big extravagant retreat is self-care. And yes, it can be. But I think, you know, you have to sometimes, and I speak from personal experience, I removed alcohol from my life because I think I didn't know Tracy. And I think removing that made me confront my, what did you say earlier? The good, the bad, the bold, and the beautiful, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And I had to literally work through that to really know who I am. But I think I love how you worded it, Vanessa. You find your core, and that's from where you operate from, everything that you make a decision from, where I didn't have that same foundation beforehand. So
And how long did it take you to find your core?
it's been a 4-year journey.
Yeah.
But I'm loving it. And I think my business, this is why I love having my own business. It catapults me onto this growth journey like no other. And had I not started Design Studio Perth, I don't quite think I would be the person that I am, because I think business has a beautiful way of exposing everything, good, bad, bold, and the ugly again.
Donna, darling.
Self-love. In some ways, I think it's the meaning to life. It's the meaning of life to fully understand yourself. Many times I can remember going to my own psychologist's office and sitting down and going, what does it all mean? Like, what is the point? And every time he would always, that same answer would come back, and it was about understanding yourself, loving yourself. And in that love, you know, we can only receive as much love as we think we are worthy of as well.
Yeah. So successful relationship is a matter of balance, like a balance sheet, yes? Because when you have this big hole and you meet somebody, we spoke about it at the beginning, it won't work. But if you complete and you meet someone with a big emotional hole, it also won't work. So actually you have to find your core, be complete, and then be intuitive and selective and lucky enough to meet someone that is whole version of themselves as well. We could talk forever. Tell me what you think.
Absolutely. Well, I'm in the midst of interesting time in my life, coming out of a very long relationship. And then just, you know, so, and I have to nurture myself with that, but I also have to remember the stories I'm telling myself around that, so that I can nurture the relationship with that person now and then moving forward in all future relationships, not just in love, but in
Yeah.
all things. But I always believe that if you pour love into any situation, you can pour love ahead.
Yeah.
And then and whatever that is, that flourishes. So the intention of love is good
Vanessa.
things.
That's an interesting one. I mean, I'm married for the second time, so that's interesting. And, you know, have learnt a lot through the first relationship that I had and chose someone completely different who stands alongside me and nurtures and loves me. And we take turns. Sometimes he's leading, sometimes I'm leading.
Right.
But it's very much, someone used the word balance. It's very balanced and
So you don't compete on this emotional level.
not at all.
Perfect.
Not at
Yeah.
Like a fair exchange.
It's an exchange.
Your energy
Tracy?
around it seems beautiful.
So I think when you meet someone, like I think what I've learned again from my personal experience, that a relationship will be not necessarily forever, but for a certain amount of time, because I think we learn the lessons from that person, and they might have a different strength at the time, and as you go and grow, that might change. And I don't believe balance exists. That's my own personal
Yeah.
belief. But I think as it shifts, you might outgrow someone, or they might outgrow you, and then there's nothing wrong with that kind of coming to a closure as well.
Yeah, I think we can get caught in those stories. You know, our brains are master storytellers at the end of the day. And if our brains are telling us that we have to stay in those types of relationships, then we're much more likely to do so, aren't we?
And not to forget one thing, we can know everything in theory, but when heart and emotions come to it,
Out the window.
Yes.
all up the door. Yes? Why do you think so many couples live now in unmarried relationships, are choosing to live? The marriage worldwide, including Australia, the conventional marriage is on decline. Main reasons that I have been, reading about and that are obvious: financial independence of women, which makes it a little bit sad because the old days should be gone, that we marrying men for financial security. Second, because of such a professional necessity for both couples to work. They don't want lavish wedding. They rather spend the money to pay off the university fees. What do you think? Is the marriage or complete decline, or will it stay forever?
There's a rise at the moment of what we're calling the grey divorce. Like there's
That's right.
more and more people divorcing in their sort of 50s, 60s, and even 70s.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's such a faceted sort of concept, right? That we're not going to solve on this couch. I
And
think-
why do they divorce so late? Because they're tired of pretending? Because the kids are out of the house?
Yeah.
Because the compromises they made for the last 25 years, beggar, I had enough? Or because the partner has changed to somebody else and people did grow apart, and the myth that children will keep marriage together becomes very obvious. It can be a myth. What's your take on it?
all of that.
We're all stunned, I think. We're like,
Literally all of that, Barbara.
I think sometimes people settle out of the fear of the unknown. So my marriage fell apart in April last year, and I think it's been one of the most challenging things I've ever gone through. I don't have children; I have 2 fur kids, and that's hard enough. So I think people, when you've got children, it's another layer that it adds, and you think how that leaving that marriage would affect those children. So I think there's so many facets, and sometimes a person doesn't believe that they're worthy of more because that relationship has formed a certain story about themselves. So they stay within that marriage for that reason. I think marriage is beautiful, and I think that if you find someone and you're with them for 60 years, great. But I think a lot of people settle for mediocrity, and because it's the fear of the unknown. That's my take. So.
Yeah.
I also like nobody goes into marriage wanting divorce.
Yeah.
It's never the intention. And, obviously marriage is work, it's 2 people coming together and there's different things, but most, we work on it and things like that. And then there's times when there's no choice but to separate and things like that. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate whenever children are involved, but I think the intention of which you do that, and I understand why people stay longer under the same roof because, there's financial things, there's also childcare, there's lots of different aspects, and it's
fear.
individual.
And fear of change, which is another can of worms, another topic on High Heel Talk. Another thing, unless Vanessa, you want
I
to
was
add
just
some-
going to say it's interesting. I'm kind of weird, I guess. I never.
Of course you are. That's why we're
I'm a
here.
bit crazy. I never had any interest in marriage. I just want to never. I never dreamed about the dress. I had no interest. I always was a person who just said, "Oh, really? Do I have to? Do I have to?"
Yeah.
And that's probably why the first one didn't work, because I didn't even change my name. You know, lovely guy, but it didn't work. I really didn't want to do it. I felt like this. And it wasn't until I evolved and I grew and I just, when I decided that I wanted children, that I started to look at marriage a little differently. And maybe it's antiquated. I just wanted to bring children into the world within the context of marriage and the commitment. But look, I think it is becoming a bit of an antiquated concept. I'm not going to lie. And so I think we shouldn't judge people based on your choices these days. I really don't. I think it's a personal choice. I don't judge anybody. I totally get it if they do, and I totally get it if they don't. I think what's really interesting, one fact in the world of work, however, which is still in existence, and it came out about a month ago, is that if you are married and you want to get into an executive role, you are going to be better perceived. So I'm just going to leave that with the audience. So we're still there, people. We are still there. Irrespective of the fact that we have moved on, we've become emancipated and independent, the view is still in existence, and a very antiquated one, but there it is.
But we also know that if you are in happy, long-standing relationship, you will live longer. So, on this note, last question. Do you think in today's times is still relevant and like necessary to change your name, since you mentioned you didn't, to your husband's name?
Oh, I had a personal dilemma about this. I was the same as you, Vanessa. I was like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to ever be anything but Weaver. So I always had a subconscious issue with that. But then again, I wanted my children to have the same name as. So that's why I got married. I got married after I had a pregnancy loss of twins, which broke my heart. So I was like, if I'm going to have another child, I'm going to get married.
So it comes to children.
Yes,
For me, it
for
did.
me, it did.
For me, it did also. But my husband
Yes.
said, Vanessa, he said, I'm happy to take on your maiden name. Would you like, because it's not fair.
You have
He
complete
said, would you
marriage.
like me to take on the maiden name? And I said, you know what? Vanessa Virtual has a kind of ring to it.
Yeah.
The VV, I said, you know what? I'll go with yours. But if he had a name like Lasagna, I might not have.
How
That's the
about
truth.
meatball?
Meatball, no thanks. You know, just saying. Just being honest with you.
Yeah. Well, hi meatball, by the way. Great.
Vanessa Meatball.
Yeah.
I'm of a more traditional sense in that I took on, Donovan's surname. And then when we separated, I decided to keep his surname. Also, I'm very well known as Tracy Fryer, and I think there was great times in that marriage as well. And it's a nightmare to go back to my maiden Greek surname. No one can really say it as well. So I think I'm of the mindset there's an honour in marrying someone and sharing your lives together. So that was my respect, to his heritage and his family. And again, I'm from a very traditional upbringing, so that was the right thing to do in my case. So.
Don.
No, I think it's all personal choice. I don't think we need to take on a man's name. They don't need to take on ours. We don't need to hyphenate. I think
Just do you.
it just complicates things. But yeah, it's a personal choice. If you want to take on your husband's name, great.
Last question to get us out of these marriages.
Yeah. Please.
About boundaries. How do you protect your energy, your own space and your own energy without pushing people away? And just a quick one.
I go and hibernate.
You have to learn how to say no
Yes.
to yourself and to others.
Boundaries keep us safe. It's probably one of the biggest thing over and over and over again that I'm consistently teaching people in therapy. Boundaries let the other person know how to treat you, and they teach you how you want to be treated. The biggest takeaway is boundaries teach other people how we want to be treated.
Yes.
And also, once you set a boundary, you have to let go of the outcome. It's actually none of your business what that person does with that boundary.
Perfect.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that gives people a lot of peace in their mind because it's not personal. It's not, having a boundary is not about conflict.
But what I'd say to that, Don, I think I absolutely agree with you, of course, was, it's such an important thing to have in your life because it teaches people the standards. What I would say in addition to that is make sure you talk to people about the boundary because, ghosting is not a boundary. So, walking away is not a boundary. Like communicate the boundary before you take that decision because otherwise it can become something quite different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm such a work of progress in this. I can learn so much from you all.
And then it comes down to, how, teaching people how to assertively create that boundary by not ghosting or not just, walking away, as you said,
No, but
Vanessa.
if you set boundaries, definitely, I'm 100% with you. Have to inform the people right away.
Don't just do a silent walkout. That's something else. Probably not for today.
Yeah, but that's in my imagination, that's what it all is. Yeah, and Tracy, anything, because we have boundaries, we have to finish now.
Yeah, so I think for me, protecting my energy, so a business can be very consuming. So I've gotten better at this, again, boundaries. So I'll have one day of the weekend where I don't do anything work related.
Yeah.
And then I have time in my calendar. That's me time, it's my running, it's my gym, it's time walking my dogs. And then every now and then I'll plan a trip away. So that just kind of resets me. So having those structured into my calendar, it goes in, it doesn't get cancelled,
That's your
it doesn't
boundaries.
get shifted.
Yes,
Everything else fits around that. So
that's right.
That was a good one.
Beautiful. Girls, on that note, let's continue talking. And thank you for being High Heel Talk panel. And thank you for
Thank you. Cheers.
this program was proudly brought to you by MCG Flooring.